Hello friends, today we are going to discuss topic number 16 of Law of Torts 1, that is General Defenses Against Torts, Novus Actus Interveniens. Introduction. The Latin phrase for other intervening act is Novus Actus Interveniens. According to Needling's 6th edition of the Law of Dialect, a Novus Actus Interveniens is an external factor that after the wrongdoer's act has been determined to have had its intended result, either caused or contributed to the result in question. Novus Actus provides for the sequence of beginning from the original wrongdoer to the liability that follows from it. In order to be considered a Novus Actus, an act or omission that has followed the initial act or omission done by wrongdoer should be beyond the reasonable predictability. If an event could have been foreseen during the moment of original wrongdoing, it will not be categorized as Novus Actus. That can lessen the accountability that should be imputed to the person who initiated the wrongful act. In most cases, damages will be dismissed as too remote if they occurred as a result by an interceding willful human act attributable to a third person, or if the plaintiff's injury could have been avoided but for the plaintiff's own intervention. The answer to the recently popularized isolation test determines whether an initially negligent person would be liable for all the consequences forever, no matter how likely or remote they are. Now we will discuss the analysis of the cases. A circumstance that removes the defendant's responsibility for the consequence of his or her wrongdoing or criminal act by swearing the chain of causation between the two. The claimant in McHugh versus Holland, a case of 1969, is an act of nature, or in the case of Karlsloge Steamship Company versus Royal Norwegian Government of 1952, or a third party can break the chain of causation in a tort case which was held in Knightley versus Jones of 1982. This standard holds that the chain of causation between the wrongdoing and its repercussions have been broken whenever the defendant can show that the repercussions could not have occurred without the other human rights violation. Because the initial cause has been depleted, the offender can be held legally responsible for no further effects of their action. A Novus Actus can occur at any point in the chain of causation, regardless of whether it is a factual or legal. If there is a Novus Actus, the initial wrongdoing is absolved of the responsibility for his actions because the chain of causation between his wrongdoing and the results of his wrongdoing has been broken. When evaluating Novus Actus in relation to legal causation, it is necessary to take into account policy, fairness, reasonableness and justice in order to determine whether or not the initial wrongdoer can still be held liable and whether or not causal chain has been broken. Dear friends, as a result, the subjective test of legal causation is rendered moot when a Novus Actus intervenes in the chain of events. A Novus Actus is not caused by the original wrongdoer. Please remember, it happens but rather by any independent intervening act. This umbrella term also encompasses the injured party's own action, those of a third party or even vis major intervention. It would be the same as if a storm caused additional and greater damage to a property after it had already been damaged by the wrongdoer. So, if a previously injured patient walks on a slippery floor and causes further injury and requires surgery, he would be considered to have created his own novus actus. Let's discuss the case of Weldbundle B. Stephens of 1920. The company's owner hired the respondent, who was a chartered accountant, to look into the books of the company. He said to have slandered 2 workers in the written orders he gave. Now, respondent gave these instructions to a partner who dropped them on the floor right away. When the manager found them, he or she read them out loud to the company's bosses. The bosses then sued the appellant for libel and won. The appellant could only ask for small amounts of money because the manager's action was there free of choice of a free agent over whom he had no authority and for whose actions he was not responsible. And the appellant could not use an indemnity to get back his actual loss in the libel case. Dear friends, now we will discuss the alternatives to novus actus intervenience ruling. Number 1. If the defendant knowingly and deliberately caused the intervening act. Point number 2. In cases where the person or thing interfering is not entirely to blame. Number 3. When an intervening event is so predictable given the circumstances. And lastly, when the action in question is completely automatic. Now we will discuss another leg of discussion, that is a new kind of intervention. Understanding the causal aspects of Aquilian action is notoriously challenging. Among the many components of causation is novus actus intervenience, which is typically viewed as affirmative defense. There are classically 2 components of causation that work together to establish whether or not one party can be held liable for another's damages. There must be both factual and legal causation for a claim to succeed. In Grunewald and Grunewald 1998, both elements have been extensively discussed. However, novus actus intervenience is another component of causation that is frequently disregarded. It is an independent event which, after the wrongdoer's act has been concluded, either caused or contributed to the consequence concerned. The original wrongdoer is no longer directly responsible for the consequences of their actions in the case of occurrence of novus actus intervenience. To be considered novus actus, an act or omission committed after the original wrongdoing must not have been reasonably foreseeable. Now, we have to remember that if the occurrence of an event was reasonably foreseeable at the time of wrongdoing, it is not a novus actus. That can reduce the liability that should be imputed to the original wrongdoer. A novus actus can intervene in the chain of events either at the factual or legal level. If there is a novus actus, the initial wrongdoer is absolved of the responsibility for his actions because the chain of causation between his wrongdoing and the results of his wrongdoing has been broken. Because it is an independent intervening act, the original wrongdoer need not to be the one responsible for the novus actus. This could include the person who was hurt, a third party, or even an act of God as explained earlier. Therefore, a person who has just undergone a surgery after injury opts to walk on a slippery road needs more medical attention. He will be considered to have added the novus actus. The same goes for a storm that causes more damage to a property after a wrongdoer has already caused the damage. Friends, The novus actus defense is often used by the first person to do something wrong to shift the blame away from themselves and onto someone else. It is important to tell the difference between this and being to blame. Contributory negligence means that an injured person is responsible for his or her own safety when an earlier act or omission contributed to the cause of the injury, like when a passenger in the car doesn't wear a seat belt. So, it was a case of contributory negligence. The novus actus, on the other hand, is a separate act that happens after the event that caused the damage. For example, when a person traveling in a car who meets with an accident is taken to the hospital and during the treatment he gets more injuries, novus actor interveniens can be used in any case of wrongdoing, but it is most often seen in the case of medical malpractice. MEC Health Eastern Cape versus Mikitha 2016 is a South African case and is an example to show this. The MEC for Health tried to change the first decision made by the Eastern Cape High Court because of the injuries she got. The Road Accident Fund and MEC were sued by the plaintiff in the court. The plaintiff was a passenger in a car that was in an accident on June 23, 2011. In this particular case, dear friends, the plaintiff was given the treatment in Nelson Mandela Academy Hospital after the accident. So, the series of events happened in this way that he was taken to Bedford Orthopedic Hospital for surgery. The expert for the plaintiff said that the plaintiff's knee joint was out of place because the right femur fracture was not fixed properly and a large piece of bone was not in the right place. Now, Bedford Orthopedic Hospital did not take x-rays of the plaintiff's right leg, which would have shown that it was out of place. She said that the hospital wasn't careful enough, so her leg healed at a 15-degree angle. The MEC filed a special plea saying that the plaintiff could only sue the Road Accident Fund because her injuries were directly caused by the accident as a compulsory requirement under Section 17 of the Road Accident Fund Act number 56 of 1996. After using the tests for the factual and legal causation as discussed earlier, the court came to the conclusion that the Road Accident Fund only could not be held responsible for the alleged sequence of the plaintiff. The medico-legal expert for the plaintiff testified during the court's hearing of the argument regarding the special plea. Friends, his testimony was uncontested and showed the court that the plaintiff's sequence would not have happened if she had received adequate care at Bedford Orthopedic Hospital. As a result, the court had to apply the appropriate test to see if the plaintiff's experience with the subpar care she received constituted a novus actus or not. The court did a factual causation analysis and came to conclusion that even though the plaintiff would not have been hurt if it hadn't been for the accident, the effects of the accident would have been much less bad if the plaintiff had gotten reasonable medical care. If the plaintiff had gotten good medical care, she wouldn't have any of the problems as she was having at that time. Also, it was decided that the plaintiff would have a hard time proving a legal link between the Road Accident Fund and poor medical care she received, which was the second act in between. The court said that a driver or the road accident fund could have expected a crash victim who was taken to the hospital would get at least enough care. In this case, it was not likely that the plaintiff would get bad or negligent care. The court in this case ruled that the road accident fund could not be held liable for the plaintiff's injuries due to poor medical care, a clear-cut case of novus actus interveniens. If the MEC's special plea is upheld, dear friends, the court would have denied the plaintiff's right to sue the MEC for negligence and limit the damages to those caused by the less serious injuries. MEC claimed that the road accident fund's carelessness caused the plaintiff's injuries and the road accident fund should pay for all the damages as mentioned under 17 subclause 1 of the said Act. The SCA harshly criticized the MEC's lawyers for not considering the evidence and causation rules. SCA here is Supreme Court. The Supreme Court also examined causes both factually, that is sine qua non test, and legally, the sufficient clause or the direct link test. The court found that Bedford Orthopedic Hospital's staff carelessness, treatment and significantly worsening the effects of the plaintiff's injuries, breaking the direct link between the accident and the seriousness of the plaintiff's injuries. The SCA ruled that the appeal should be thrown out or dismissed due to weak special argument or plea. This Mikitha case exemplifies the widespread uncertainty and misunderstanding about the precise point at which a novus actus interrupts a chain of causation. According to the SCA, the plaintiff would not have needed hospitalization if it weren't for the accident. When a patient checks into a hospital, however, the burden of caregiving shifts. It was then the hospital's responsibility to provide the plaintiff with adequate medical care arises. The hospital's failure to provide the plaintiff with reasonable medical care, the medical staff's negligence in caring for the plaintiff, and the medical staff's subsequent breach of their duty of care to the plaintiff were all completely unforeseen. The chain of causes cannot go on forever. Therefore, the road accident fund cannot be held responsible for an unforeseen event that occurs due to carelessness of third party. The plaintiff's injuries are not sufficiently closely and directly linked to the motor vehicle collision for liability to be imputed on the road accident fund, even though the facts show that he would not have been hospitalized if it weren't for the collision in question. This is because the hospital staff's negligence severed the chain of causation. Dear friends, in order to determine whether or not an event is a novus actus, it must be analyzed in a great detail. The Mikitha's case may be the most recent novus actus intervenience ruling, but it is by no means the only one. Cases like Mafesa versus Parity v. PPK of 1968, S versus Mock-Kethi of 1990, and Road Accident Fund versus Russell address this facet of causation among many others. Although the question of novus actus intervenience is rarely brought up, all three of these cases are widely known. In Mikitha's case, however, the court found that the plaintiff's cause of action against the MEC relied on the same novus actus intervenience and held that the below standard care which was provided in the hospital could be considered to segregate the causal connection between the plaintiff and the road accident fund. Dear friends, despite its common use as a defense, the road accident fund would have raised it anyway if the plaintiff hadn't used it. Now, novus actus interveniens can also be understood as a separate but related cause of action. When evaluating a claim, it is important to take into account the various tools available, including novus actus. Novus actus interveniens is given legal weight if it meets one of the true criteria. Number 1. It is a human action that should be seen as voluntary, or it is a casually independent event whose coincidence with the wrong act or omission is so unlikely that it cannot be called a coincidence. In a very popular case of Haber versus Walker of 1963, this case was that set up the test. When a minor leg injury of the plaintiff is attributable to the negligent act of the defendant, such plaintiff may be able to break the chain of causation. For negligence, if they voluntarily take action to exacerbate their injury, such as jumping off a roof and breaking the leg. In this particular case, friends, the plaintiff's free choice would swear the causal chain linking the defendant's conduct to the harm the plaintiff is experiencing. Now, we come to the conclusion of today's lecture. In the conclusion, it can be safely appended that there has never been the rule that the ultimate damage cannot be attributed to the original carelessness because of the intervention of human action. The phrase novus actus interveniens is used when an intervention breaks the chain of causation and prevents the damage from being attributed to the reckless behavior in the first place. But there are many cases in everyday life where the law has no difficulty in holding that the defendant's conduct caused the plaintiff's loss, even though one of the connecting links is deliberate human action. The above quote is taken from Lord Reed's judgment in Home Office versus Dorsey Yacht Company of 1970, which has become central to the cases involving novus actus interveniens defense. This asserts that the plaintiff's injury was not the result of plaintiff's own negligence, but rather the result of action of an intervening third party. In particular, these cases have tried to extend Dorsey Yacht Company's principle to the ones in which the third party intervening was a total stranger over whom the defendant had no control. However, it should be kept in mind that the causal sequence could be interrupted by an intervening human actor acting voluntarily. Friends, it is crucial to check that no intervening acts have broken the chain of causation in terms of the liability when evaluating the claims for damages. This is a factor that is often disregarded or not established until late in the litigation process. Therefore, it is crucial to conduct thorough investigations so that you have all the information you need before making a decision. The limiting effect of novus actus interveniens on a party's liability suggests that it might be useful in determining the damages. With this, we come to an end of today's discussion. I hope you had a good understanding of the concept. Thank you for the patience listening.